الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So we are continuing with the words of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alayhi Wasalam, selections from the Hadith, and last week we did some Hadith about points of Iman and Salah. So today we are continuing with the 5 pillars of Islam. So we did the Salah, we did Iman and Salah last week, and today we are going to continue with the fasting. So many of you are familiar because every Ramadan we go through these hadith, but it's always good to listen to the hadith and to think about the benefits of them, because you can fast all year round. Right? Technically, you can fast all year except for the 5 forbidden days when it's haram, which are the 2 Eids and then the 3 days after the big Eid. So there's 5 days when we're not allowed to fast during the year, but other than that, you can fast any time of the year. And for maintenance of health and spirituality, the best fasts are the Sunnah fasts, which are the Prophet ﷺ did and which are recommended for us to do. So they are weekly and monthly and yearly. So the weekly ones are Mondays and Thursdays. And these are 2 points in the week which are spaced out. If you look, they're spaced out equally. And if you do these fasts, then they renew health. Like all the research that is coming out now is showing that fasting at these 2 points in the week renew the health. It slows the body down, and then it renews the digestion once again, and that's really good for health. It's like flipping a switch. And then the 3 during the month are the 13, 14, 15. These are the 3 in the middle of the month, which are called the white days. And then there are the days that we fast, which are sunnah throughout the year. Like in Muharram, there was a fast, and then there's the fast during the Hijjah. So there's throughout the year there are fasts which are sunnah and which the Prophet ﷺ recommended. So let's continue with the hadith, which is everything has a cleansing agent. The Prophet ﷺ said in the authority of Abu Hurairah, the Prophet ﷺ said, everything has a cleansing agent, and fasting is a cleansing agent for the body. Fasting is more a matter of patience than of anything else. So everything has a cleansing agent. That means it cleans, and like we just said about the body, that the cleansing agent of the body is the fasting. And the fasting is more of a matter of patience than of anything else. So not only does it develop the body, it's good for the body, but it's also good for the mental state, for the psychological state. It's good for all of these things because it develops patience in a person. That when you give up food and drink for the course of the whole day from sunrise to sunset, then and you can do this whenever you want to do it, it points to a great matter of patience. And so it's a good thing to build that into uh, your spirituality practice. That means it's very good to do that as part of your ibadah. So although it has the physical benefits, that it's something that Allah has designed to help us with our ibadah too. There's a lot of benefits behind the fasting. Right. Next hadith, which is from Al-Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abu Hurairah, the Prophet ﷺ said, if the observer of a fast does not give up false utterances and their pursuit, then God does not require him to give up his food and water. What this hadith means is that if you are fasting and you don't give up the normal course of false utterances, that means your mouth is not fasting, right? The tongue is not fasting. It can say whatever it wants. The eyes are not fasting, and the ears are not fasting. It's listening to backbiting and music or whatever. Then Allah does not require him to give up his food and water. So although this hadith only mentions the false utterances and their pursuit, by extension, it's all the five senses that if you can't give up what Allah wants you to give up in a normal process, like the mouth is protected, the tongue is also fasting, and it doesn't utter anything false. The ears are fasting; they don't hear any falsehood um, or anything that's haram. The mouth obviously is fasting, right? But because you're not eating anything, but the eyes are also fasting, they don't see anything that is haram. So all of these things, if you don't control these things, then Allah doesn't require us to give up food and water. He has no need for us to give up food and water. But what this hadith is telling us is that the fast is not just of the mouth when you stop eating, but also of the tongue, the eyes, the ears, right? And a fast of the whole body. The next hadith is from Al-Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abu Hurairah. Prophet ﷺ said, fasting is like a shield. When one of you is observing a fast, neither should you indulge in indecent talk, nor should you create an uproar. And if someone talks ill of you or fights with you, you should just say, I am observing my fast. So the Prophet ﷺ said, fasting is like a shield. So just like a shield which is used in battle to protect oneself, so the fasting is like a shield, and it protects from so many things. So when one of you is observing a fast, you should not indulge in indecent talk, nor should you create an uproar. So then we also given the etiquettes of when you're fasting, that you shouldn't indulge in indecent talk which is indecent, and nor should you create an uproar. Like if you're feeling angry because of the hunger, you're feeling irritated or agitated, then it doesn't mean anything for the fast if you create an uproar. So, and if someone talks ill of you or fights with you, you should just say, I am observing my fast. So if everybody is fasting like in Ramadan and somebody else is getting agitated and angry, um, and if, or they talking ill of you, or they trying to pick a fight with you, then you should just say that I am observing my fast. And if you say that, then that will let them think that I'm fast. That person is fasting, so I should not approach them with this right now. Right. The next hadith is from Al Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abu Hurairah. He said, the Prophet ﷺ said, the man who keeps a fast in full faith and for reward in the hereafter will be forgiven his past sins. And the man who prays in the night during Ramadan with faith and for reward in the world hereafter will be forgiven all his past sins. So this is a very important hadith for us to understand that why should we be fasting? Why do we need to fast? So even though if you are in a Muslim community, a Muslim country, Muslim family, it's easy to fast because everybody is fasting and it's an expected thing to do. But in order to get the full benefit of the fast, it's important to understand why we are fasting. And so this hadith tells us the man who keeps a fast in full faith and for rewarding the world hereafter will be forgiven his past sins. So the point of the fast is that you fast for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make Allah happy, because He has made it fard on us in the Quran. You're fasting because you're fulfilling a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're fasting so that you will get all the benefits of it, and then you're fasting so that you will get reward in the hereafter. And if somebody does it with that intention, then all their sins will be forgiven. And the person who prays in the night during Ramadan with faith and for reward in the world hereafter will be forgiven all the past sins. So a person who prays in the night and you know that we fast during the day and we pray in the night. So if you do that for the sake of the reward of the hereafter, then you'll be forgiven all the past sins as well. So intentions are very important. And we did that last week as well. That the intention of a deed, why are we praying? Why are we fasting? Why are we giving charity? To think about the intention behind it is very important, because that will elevate a deed from being a very normal deed or on a lower scale to a very high scale. So intentions come first. Hadith number 29, and this hadith is from Bukhari and Muslim on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet Sallallahu Alayhe Wasalam said, when Ramadan comes, the doors of heaven are opened, the doors of hell are closed, the devils are put in chains, and the doors of mercy are opened. SubhanAllah. And we are reminded about this at the beginning of every Ramadan, that the doors of heaven are open and the doors of hell are closed, and devils are put in chains. So these are all the big devils, but the devils inside us and the devils of our bad habits remain with us. And so that's why we still need to be very vigilant, because the big devils are put in chains, but the devils that are with us, our qareens, and then also our own nafs and the things that we do, they will be with us. And the doors of mercy are open. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up the doors of mercy for us. And that's why you see a lot of barakah, blessings in Ramadan. You'll see that the blessings come from all sides. Um, and even negative things which are happening in the world at that time, they can be classified as blessings. And many things that happen which are negative in the world, we know that they are actually blessings in disguise, because Allah's hikmah, Allah's wisdom is far above everybody else's. So what we may see as very negative might actually be a very positive thing for the world. And so this is a hadith about Ramadan. And that is why when the coming of Ramadan is a very big blessing for the Muslims. And you'll see that as soon as Ramadan comes, people are happy, they're more relaxed, families come together, they do iftar together, they spend more time together. And in the homes there is so much peace, because we switch off all our sins. We switch off our normal ghafla, like our normal don't care attitudes, and we turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We also start reading the Quran, so we start seeing the benefits of the Quran. And we could have that every day actually. If we were to read Quran in our daily life, morning and evening, even if it's a few verses, then we would get the barakah and the rahmah of that Quran in our life. And you will see the difference. You can actually see and observe the difference. So Ramadan doesn't just have to be a special month. We could have Ramadan every day. We could be fasting, and we could be reading Quran every day. We could be doing the night prayers every day. And people who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they observe a life like this. If you look at their routines, and this is why it's a good idea to go and read about the pious people, you'll see that their routines are just like Ramadan. Like for example, I saw the obituary of a person who passed away recently, and he, just before he passed away, he made a video and he talked about, he was holding the Quran and he said that I have now finished reading the Quran 4,500 and something times. And he said, I didn't want to make this video, but the people in my masjid, they forced me, and they said, you should tell the people so it's an inspiration for them. So he was saying that I read a Quran every day, and sometimes in Ramadan I sometimes finish 2 a day, and this is from the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now even if you do your mathematical calculation and say, how does that person read 2 Qurans a day, how is it possible to uh, how is it uh, how is it possible to do this? Then uh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it possible for those people whom He wants to make it possible for. And so we must ask for guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We must ask for this gift that we too are close to the Quran, and we can read the Quran, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hadith number 30. Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu said that they used to travel with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Those who observed a fast never found fault with those who did not keep a fast. Similarly, those not observing the fast never said anything amiss to those who kept their fast. And this is hadith of al-Bukhari. So Anas bin Malik was a famous Sahaba. He said that they used to travel with the Prophet ﷺ, and those who observed the fast never found fault with those who did not keep the fast. So, in other words, those who were fasting, they didn't tell the people who were not fasting that, why are you not fasting? And similarly, those who were not fasting did not say to those, they didn't say anything that, why are you fasting? You don't need to fast, etc., to the ones who were fasting. So everybody respected each other's wish. So whether they were fasting or not, it didn't matter to them. So they didn't coerce the ones who were fasting, nor did the ones who were fasting make the other people feel guilty that, why are you eating, etc. So you can see from this hadith that there is a free choice, that anybody who wants to fast, then they can fast. Anybody who doesn't want to fast outside of Ramadan, they don't have to fast. Hadith number 31. This is a hadith of At-Tirmidhi and Abu Dawud on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, any man who misses a fast without a reason, such as illness, can never atone for it, even if he fasts for the rest of his life. So this is a really important hadith, because it's telling us that if you miss a fast in Ramadan and um, without a reason such as illness, and if you were to try to make it up for the rest of your life, you kept fasting for the rest of your life, um, that you kept on fasting, so to make up for that one fast that you missed without any reason, then still you will not be able to atone for it. Now, the reason why this is important is that if you have a severe illness and you really cannot fast, then that is one thing. But many people, they miss the fast on a pretext of, oh, I'm not feeling too well today, and I don't have to be fasting, or I'm feeling weak today, so I shouldn't fast. Or somebody tells them, oh, you don't have to fast. But you have to take the Ramadan fast very, very serious. You can't take them like, oh, I have a headache today, so I'm not going to fast today. Because it says that if you were to try to make it up for the rest of your life, you realize this, and you try to make it up, you still wouldn't be able to make it. That shows how precious the Ramadan fast is. And that's why if you do have a sickness, and it really is a chronic illness, and you could die from it, right? Or if you fasted, then you could fall into another serious sickness, or something serious can happen to you, like you can pass out or something like that. Then that is a cause for you not to fast. But if it's something that you will survive and you can get through, then you should make the utmost effort to fast, right? And this is why, even if you go to a doctor, and most doctors, they always err on the side of precaution. So it's their job to tell you that you don't have to fast, right? It's their job to actually tell you that, because they don't want to take any risks. So they will always err on the side of take the precaution. However, if you really need to get a doctor's opinion on it, then you should go to a Muslim doctor who understands the Ramadan fasting and how important it is, so that you don't take somebody's word lightly, and even a family member's, and you miss a Ramadan fast. So you should take the Ramadan fast very, very seriously. And this is why Also, when children are of the age of fasting, then they should be made to fast as well, and the fast should be taken very seriously. Hadith number 32, Hadith of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, on the authority of Anas bin Malik radiallahu anh, who said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, partake of suhoor, food taken a little before dawn during Ramadan, for there is a blessing in it. So this hadith is telling us that the suhoor, the food that is taken before dawn, and that's before we start the fast during Ramadan, um, for there is a blessing in it. So there is a blessing in doing the suhoor, even if it's eating very little. Like even if you had a date and some milk or some water, and you did the intention of the suhoor, because many people they can't eat first thing in the, like if pre-dawn, they can't eat a lot of food, which is fine. But even if you take a little bit and with the intention of the suhoor, then there is a blessing in it. Hadith number 33, Hadith of Abu Dawud. Abdullah ibn al-Abbas reported that the Prophet ﷺ made almsgiving on Eid al-Fitr an obligatory act, as well as providing food for the poor. It was meant to atone for any absurdity or immodesty that may have been committed during fasting in the month of Ramadan. So this is uh, the hadith from Abdullah ibn al-Abbas radiallahu anh, who said that Prophet ﷺ made almsgiving, charity on Eid al-Fitr an obligatory act. That means it's not just a charity, but it's called Zakat al-Fitr because it's obligatory, it's wajib, and as, as well as providing food for the poor so that the poor can understand or enjoy the um, the the Eid. It will atone for any absurdity. It will atone for any immodesty in the fast. That means any mistakes that we have committed during fasting in the month of Ramadan, we will be able to, inshallah, Allah will forgive us for those. So it's on the level of if you give zakah on a normal basis, where zakah is fard and wajib, then the same is for the Zakatul Fitr. Hadith number 34, and this is the hadith of Ibn Majah on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you pay zakat, you have done your duty as is obligatory. Now this is we're talking about the poor tax. It's called, we don't call it a charity because you have to give this. Charity you have an option. Sadaqah you have an option whether you want to give it or you don't want to give it. But zakah there is no option. If it's fard on you, then you have to give the zakah. And the Prophet ﷺ said that when you pay the zakah, you've done your duty as is obligatory. But a person who amasses unlawful wealth and then makes gifts to the poor from it will have no spiritual reward for doing so. On the contrary, he will carry the burden of it with him into the next world. So this is about a person who amasses haram wealth and then makes gifts to the poor from it. They will have no spiritual reward of doing so. So this answers the question of if you have haram wealth or if something is haram with you, can you give it as a charity? Then the answer is no. Right? The answer is it won't be a charity. For example, in some accounts, bank accounts, you might accrue interest. So some people ask the question that can we give that as a charity? So the point is that that interest is haram to take anyway. Right? You can't take that interest. You can't spend it. You can't charity give it a charity. You can't gift it. So what would you do with that wealth? You would put it into something where there is a dire need. For example, if they are making toilets somewhere, then you can give it to that kind of an organization or something like that. But generally, you can't even give it as charity to the poor because it's haram to do that. But some people, they will say that you can give it to an organization who's collecting and let them know that this is interest money, and then they will be able to. They know there are certain categories that it can be spent on, and you can give it like that. However, this hadith is clearly telling us that if something is haram, if it's haram wealth, then you cannot give it as gifts to the poor as well. On the contrary, because there's no spiritual reward for it, on the contrary, the person will come carrying it as a burden into the next world. So this is why it's so important to stay away from haram wealth. Hadith number 35, Hadith of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, on the authority of Abdullah ibn al-Abbas. Allah has made the Muslims duty bound to pay zakah. It will be realized from the wealthy to be distributed among the needy. Right, so Allah has made the Muslims duty bound to pay zakah, and it will be realized from the wealthy to be distributed among the needy. What this means is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this a duty on the Muslims that they pay the zakah, and it will be taken from the wealthy and distributed among the needy. And what this means is that zakat money is that zakat money is it flows in society, so that when there is a surplus somewhere, when there is extra in one place, then it will be it, then it will flow to the people that need it. And this is why zakat is so important. If we just if everybody just paid their zakah in the world, then it would eliminate so much of the poverty. It would take away so much of need of people, because they the money would get to the right people. Hadith number 36. So this is the hadith of Al-Bukhari on the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas, who said that the Prophet ﷺ said, the owner of any land which is irrigated by rainwater or a stream, or which is situated close to a river, is obliged to give 1/10 of his produce to the needy. The owner of such land as is irrigated by other methods will pay half this amount. So this is about zakah on what you grow, right? So there's not just zakah on savings and money. It's also for farmers, that when they grow things, then there is a zakah on that. There's also zakah in business. So anybody who does transactions with money, they should learn the fiqh of the zakah. It's important to learn that. So the owner of any land which is irrigated by water, rainwater or a stream, or which is situated close to a river, is obliged to give 1/10 of its produce to the needy. So what the farmer will do is, when they've cultivated the land and it's grown, and they pick all the produce, so 1/10 of it they have to give to the needy. If it was irrigated, that means the water was given from rainwater, that means it was natural water, or from a stream. So they didn't have to do much effort, because the water was just coming, and they didn't have to put in that much effort. So they will give 1/10 of their produce. So for example, if a farmer was growing apples, for example, So when they will get the full extent of the bushels of apple, then they will divide it into 10 parts, and 1/10 of it will give it to the poor. Now, the owner of such land as is irrigated by other methods will pay half this amount. So, if the owner of the land had to bring their own watering, for example, or they had to create methods, irrigation methods within their fields to bring the water to the trees, then they will pay half. That means 1/5, right? They will pay 1/5 of the produce to the needy. They don't have to pay 1/10 because they had to make an effort. Maybe they had to spend money or they had to pay people to bring water to the land. So then they would pay 1/5 of what they have grown. Hadith number 37. This is the hadith of Al-Bukhari on the authority of Abu Hurairah. If a person to whom God has given wealth does not give zakah, he will find that on the day of judgment his wealth turns into a poisonous snake with 2 black spots on its head. It will be like a yoke around his neck. Then it will seize him by the jaws and declare, I am your wealth, I am your treasure. So this is the punishment for the person who Allah has given wealth to, because remember, all wealth was given by Allah and belongs to Allah. This is a very important distinction, because people think once they get money, they think that, oh, I have earned this. This is my effort, and this is what I have earned. So it all belongs to me. But you have to remember that wealth belongs to Allah, and so the laws of wealth you'll see are very different from other societies or other religions. Our laws are based on how Allah wants us to distribute it. And so somebody who doesn't give the zakah, and zakah is very little, if you look at the whole picture, it's 2.5% of the wealth, which is not a lot. And if you give it regularly and it's built into the wealth, then it's not difficult to give this amount. So a person who does not give zakah, he will find that on the day of judgment, his wealth turns into a poisonous snake with 2 black spots on its head, and it will be like a yoke around his neck. That means it will come and sit around the neck of that person, and then it will seize him by the jaws and declare, I am your wealth, I am your treasure. So his wealth will turn into a snake, a poisonous snake on the day of judgment, and come and wrap itself around uh, around his neck. So may Allah protect us. That's why we have to be very careful about giving the zakah. Not just the regularity means once a year, but we should also be very pertinent about how much to give. That we calculate everything that we have, and if you don't know much about zakah, then you should attend a seminar for it and learn about this, because this is part of the third ilm that you need to have as well. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hadith number 38. Uh, this is the hadith of At-Tirmidhi on the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. A believer who feeds another of the faithful who is hungry will be fed on the fruits of paradise by God on the day of judgment. Now this is a very beautiful hadith about feeding others, and we, if you need a motivation, we all know that we should feed other people. We all know that it's a human obligation to feed a person who is hungry. That means even without anything else, everybody instinctively knows that they should feed somebody who is hungry. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put an incentive for us. The Prophet ﷺ said, a believer who feeds another of the faithful who is hungry, will be fed on the fruits of paradise by God on the day of judgment. On the day of judgment, when there will be no food, Allah will give that person fruits of paradise, subhanAllah. And a believer who serves water to another who is thirsty will have his thirst slaked from the sealed drinks on the day of judgment by Allah. So if a person serves water to another who is thirsty, then Allah will give him the nectar that is sealed. The Quran talks about this. It's called the sealed nectar, Rahik al-Maktoum, and many other places it talks about the sealed drinks. and these will be for those people on the day of judgment when there be no other drinks. Allah will give it to a person who has served water in the world. And if a believer clothes another of the faithful who is in dire need of clothing, he too will be rewarded with apparel from paradise by God on the day of judgment. That person will be given uh, clothes from by Allah on the day of judgment. And the first person to be clothed, according to the hadith, the Prophet said, on the day of judgment will be Ibrahim alayhi salam, and then the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because Ibrahim alayhi salam is the friend of Allah, and Allah will honor him in this way, and Allah will say, clothe him on the day of judgment, and then two garments from paradise will be bought for Ibrahim alayhi salam. He will wear those, and then the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam will be given clothing, and then all the other people will be given clothing, people who are close to Allah. And in this hadith it mentions that if you clothe another for the sake of Allah, then Allah will clothe you with the clothes of Jannah, inshaAllah. Hadith number 39, and this is hadith of Al-Bukhari and Muslim. Abu Dhar al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu narrates that he came to the Prophet ﷺ, who was sitting in the shade of the Kaaba. When he saw me, he said, "They stand to lose." I said, "May my parents ransom you. To whom do you refer?" To Prophet replied, "To those with an excess of riches." He replied, "who just squander their wealth, heedless of the fact that they can be saved only if they spend generously for a good cause. And there are very few wealthy men of that ilk." So Abu Dhar al-Ghifari relates that he came to the Prophet ﷺ, who was sitting in the shade of the Kaaba. When he saw me, he said, "They stand to lose." I said, "May my parents ransom you. To whom do you refer?" "To those with an excess of riches." He replied, "who just squander their wealth, heedless of the fact that they can be saved only if they spend generously for a good cause. And there are very few wealthy men of that ilk." So Prophet ﷺ said, they stand to lose. So who stands to lose? That Abu Dhar al-Ghifari asked. So Prophet ﷺ replied that a person who has excess of riches, I mean they're very rich, and they just squander their wealth, they just throw it away, heedless of the fact that they can be saved only if they spend generously for a good cause. That means they spend on futile things, on things that do not matter, or instead of having one car, they have 50 cars, or you can only use one car at one time, right? A human being can only sit in one car and use one car. Now, even if they love cars, but they go to the excess of having 50 or 100, 150 cars. That's an excess. So those kind of people are people who just throw away money. So for example, if there's a wedding, and a wedding is a classic example where many people who are not just the excessive rich, but even people who are not rich, just to show other people, they will throw away money. And throwing away money is going over the top, maybe in the decorations. Like, for example, they might have fresh flowers flown from another country, or they might have an excess of flowers, or they spend thousands on the decoration of the stage, um, or they have so much food that people can't even eat it, and then they end up throwing that food away. So this is an excess. This is what we call wasting money. And everybody knows in their heart what is a waste. People know in their heart what is a waste, right? So, and if you don't know, then you should ask your heart that is this wasting, is this squandering, or is this using in the right way? And if so, this hadith is giving us a message that if Allah does give somebody excess wealth, He gives them lots of these riches, there is a reason for giving that person excess, and they will, um, and they should use it for the good cause of other people. And there are very few wealthy men of that ilk. That means there are very few wealthy people who actually do that. And Just this week, on the news, uh, there was a report about a billionaire who who made so much money, and he's given away an excess of $6 billion. And now, um, because he's in his 80s now and he's wrapping up his life, he has he lives in a small apartment, and he described it like freshmen's, like when you go to college and you have a small apartment and he's sharing with another person, just a little room. So he's living in an apartment that small, and he's managed to give away all of his wealth um, in his lifetime, which is such an achievement. Right? It's such an achievement to be able to do that. That in your own lifetime, all your wealth has been given to good causes. And this person is not even Muslim, he's not a believer, but he's an example, because there's so many believers, Muslims, who don't do this. Right? Who don't have the right attitudes to money, who squander their wealth, right? They waste it, they throw it away when other people are starving, right? Their neighbors are starving, and yet they are throwing away in excess. They're just throwing things away. And when we say throwing, that means they're wasting it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a test for them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask them about this. So this hadith is telling us that they are at a loss, they stand to lose, because everything Allah gives us in this world, including riches, including money, is a test for us. So anything that is extra in our life, it has to be given in charity. That means if it's all given to somebody who will use it, anything that is extra is a burden on us, because we will be asked about it, right? And we don't realize that. We do not realize that at all. And especially where we are living, if we're living in the West, and it's so easy to get things, right? The story of things. It's so easy to amass lots of things. Um, so it's something to think about, that we, uh, there comes a point when we have to stop collecting things, and we should, in our lifetime, we should give it to the poor, so that they can start using it whilst we are alive, and we still want it. Because many times we want to keep things because we think, oh, I might use this again, or somebody else in my family will use it. But it's better that in your lifetime you have given it and somebody starts using it. That will be a charity for you. Hadith number 40, and this is a hadith of An-Nasai and At-Tirmidhi on the authority of Salman bin Amir radiallahu anhu. The Prophet ﷺ said, giving alms to the poor is a single good deed, or giving alms to a poor relative has the double virtue of giving alms and at the same time treating one's own relative well. And this is a really important hadith, because it's teaching us that you can give charity to the poor because it's one good deed, but to give that charity to the poor relative is a double virtue. And in another hadith it says that if it's given to a poor relative who's a neighbor as well, who's live close to you, then you'll get 3 good deeds. So this is a very important hadith, that we should keep connection with our relatives and make sure that they are all right. And you will only know if they're okay, if you have a good rapport, and that you have a good relationship with them. That means you're regularly talking to them and checking up on them and asking about their affairs and what's going on in their life. Then you will be able to help that person. If you don't keep good rapport with them, then how will you know that when they are in trouble or when they're in danger? This hadith is telling us that we have to keep good relations with our relatives. And a hadith of Al-Bayhaqi on the authority of Abu Hurairah, he said that the Prophet ﷺ said, if a man who sets out with the intention of performing Hajj, Umrah, Jihad meets with his death on the way, he will be granted the reward of Jihad, Hajj or Umrah by his Maker. So if somebody sets out with the intention of performing the Hajj or the Umrah, the lesser Hajj or the Jihad, and they meet with the death on the way, that means on the journey they die, or even if they are going to go and they pack and prepare to go, but they die even before setting out from their home because mentally they're already on that journey, then they will get the reward of that Hajj or Umrah or Jihad by their Maker. Allah will give them the reward of it. And inshallah, we will continue with the hadith next week because we started on a new topic, which is about going for Hajj and for the Jihad, setting out the path of Allah. And we will discuss that inshallah next week. So, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala um, give us the ability to fast even when we don't have to. If you have make-up fasts, then we should make them up. Obviously, we fast in the month of Ramadan, but outside of Ramadan, there's so many benefits of fasting. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to do the fasting. And also, we learned today about feeding the poor, and we don't have to have an excuse to feed the poor. We don't need an excuse. And it's a call of our humanity that we should be feeding anybody who is hungry. And so we will only know this if we make it a priority. That means we've made it an intention that that's what we want to do. And you'll see there are lots of inspirational people who make it a part of their weekly routine that they feed people. Like there's a group in Virginia who go out and they feed people in DC. They cook food on Sunday morning and then they take the food out and they give it out on the streets to the people. And this is our duty. This is something that Islam tells us that we have to do. So you can make an intention that at some point we will also be doing this, inshallah. And even if you don't go out on the streets, there's so many people you can feed. There's neighbors, there's people around you in your community. Maybe they're elderly, maybe they're sick. And if you know of them, you can give them food. Uh, and food is very healing as well. Food is a thing that when you share it, then it has other effects, not just of the hunger, but it also has other effects on people as well. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ told us that we should feed the uh, the hungry, not just the poor, but the hungry. And we're going to end with that, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open our ways for us. Allah make everything easy for us, inshallah. And we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.